I was standing in my garage hands, covered in oil and grease, tightening the final bolt on a custom chopper when the engine roared to life for the first time. That sound, that perfect rumble, it filled me with pride I had never felt in any office cubicle. But then my father's voice echoed in my head, sharp and mocking. "Your motorcycle will not pay the bills, Arnold. It is just a waste of time." I had carried those words for years like stones in my pockets, weighing me down every single day. I never imagined that my brother Marcus would be the one to blow up my secret and turn my entire family upside down. Before I dive into what happened that day, I would love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. If you have ever felt like the black sheep in your family, hit that like button. And subscribe, because this story gets wild. Stick around to find out how a single dinner party changed everything I thought I knew about success. Let me take you back to where it all started. I grew up in Houston, Texas, in a house that looked like success from the outside. My father, Gerald, was 62 years old and had built his reputation as a real estate developer. He owned properties across the city, wore expensive suits, and drove a Mercedes that gleamed under the Texas sun day. My mother, Patricia, stayed home and managed the household with the same precision my father applied to his business deals. She always agreed with whatever my father said, nodding along like his personal chorus. Then there was my brother Marcus. He was 31, 3 years older than me, and he was everything my parents wanted in a son. Marcus graduated top of his class in finance, landed a position as a financial analyst at a big corporate firm downtown, and climbed the ladder faster than anyone expected. He wore tailored shirts, talked about investment portfolios at dinner, and made our father beam with pride every time he walked into a room. And then there was me, Arnold, 28 years old, and the constant disappointment. Our house sat in the Houston suburbs, a massive 2-story structure with perfectly manicured lawns and a circular driveway. It screamed success, but inside those walls I always felt like I was suffocating. From the time I was young, I knew I was different from Marcus. While he spent hours studying economics textbooks, I was in the garage taking apart anything with an engine. Lawnmowers, go-karts, anything I could get my hands on. I wanted to understand how things worked, how pieces fit together to create power and motion. When I was 15 years old, everything changed. I was walking home from school one afternoon when I passed a small garage tucked away on a side street. Through the open bay door, I saw it. A custom Harley-Davidson, its chrome catching the sunlight, every inch of it modified and perfected. An older man with grease-stained hands was bent over the engine, and I could not look away. I stood there for 20 minutes, just watching him work. His name was Jimmy, and he noticed me standing there like a lost puppy. He waved me over, and before I knew it, I was spending every afternoon in that garage. Jimmy taught me everything. How to rebuild engines from the ground up, how to customize parts, how to understand the flow of power through every component. I had found something that made sense to me in a way nothing else ever had. The first time I rode a motorcycle, I was 17. Jimmy let me take one of his bikes out on the open highway. The moment I twisted that throttle and felt the rumble beneath me, the wind pushing against my face, I understood freedom. Real freedom. Not the kind my father talked about when he closed another business deal, but the kind that came from inside, from doing something that set your soul on fire. But that freedom came with a price. When I was 17, I made the mistake of telling my father what I wanted to do with my life. We were sitting at the dinner table, the 4 of us eating the pot roast my mother had spent hours preparing. I remember my hands were shaking when I said it. "Dad, I want to study mechanical engineering. I want to open a custom bike shop someday." The silence that followed felt like it lasted an hour. My father put down his fork slowly, deliberately. He looked at me like I had just told him I wanted to join the circus. "Motorcycles," he said, and there was this edge to his voice that made my stomach drop. "That is a hobby, not a career, Arnold," I tried to explain. I told him about the market for custom bikes, about how people paid thousands of dollars for personalized work, about my passion for the craft. But he just laughed. Actually laughed. "Your motorcycle will not pay the bills," he said, shaking his head. "You want to end up broke in some greasy garage. Is that your dream?" Marcus sat across from me, silent, but I could see the contempt in his eyes. My mother reached over and patted my hand like I was a child who had just said something foolish. "Your father knows best, honey," she said softly. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Everything I had worked for, everything I had discovered about myself, dismissed in seconds. My father made it clear. I would attend the local college and study business administration. End of discussion. So I did. I sat through 4 years of classes that bored me to tears, learning about marketing strategies and financial statements, while my heart was still back in Jimmy's garage. I passed my classes but barely. I showed up because I had to, but I never stopped working on bikes. I just did it in secret. When Marcus graduated with his finance degree, my father threw him a party at the country club. He invited every business partner he knew, gave a speech about how proud he was, how Marcus was going to do great things. The whole night was a celebration of everything Marcus represented. When I graduated 2 years later, we had dinner at home. Just the four of us. My father did not invite anyone. He did not give a speech. He just said, "At least you finished," and moved on to talking about something else. That night I realized something that hurt more than any words he had said. In my father's eyes, I was invisible, unless I was doing something wrong. After college, I was 22, and completely lost. My father pulled strings and got me a job at a sales firm owned by one of his business associates. It was supposed to be my entry into the real world, my chance to prove I could be responsible. But sitting in that cubicle every day surrounded by gray walls and fluorescent lights, I felt like I was dying slowly. During the day I pushed papers across my desk, made phone calls I did not care about, and watched the clock like it was my only friend. But at night and on weekends I came alive. I had saved up enough money to rent a small garage space on the outskirts of Houston. It was not much, just a single bay with concrete floors and walls that needed paint, but it was mine. The smell of oil and metal filled that space, and I covered the walls with sketches of bike designs and every tool I could afford. I spent 3 years learning everything I could. I took on small custom jobs from local bikers who heard about me through word of mouth. I watched online tutorials about business management, marketing, and branding. I taught myself how to build, not just bikes, but a reputation. Every bike I finished was better than the last. People started talking. My name started spreading through the motorcycle community. By the time I was 26, something incredible had happened. I had built something real. I called it Apex Rides, and it was everything I had ever dreamed of. I had a professional website with a portfolio of my work. My Instagram account had 20,000 followers who loved what I created. I was getting orders from across Texas, and even from neighboring states. I collaborated with local artists who did custom paint jobs that turned each bike into a work of art. A small motorcycle magazine even featured one of my builds. The money started coming in. My first year I made $90,000. The second year, $150,000. By the time I turned 28, I was approaching $300,000 annually. I hired 2 part-time mechanics to help with the workload and expanded my garage space. But here is the thing. I never told my family. Not a single word. When I was 26, I quit the sales job. I walked into my manager's office, thanked him for the opportunity, and left. I knew what I was doing. I knew the risk. But I also knew I could not spend one more day pretending to be someone I was not. When I told my parents I quit, my father lost it. We were standing in his living room, and his face turned red with anger. "You are throwing away a stable job," he shouted. "Marcus would never do something this stupid." I told them I needed to take a break to figure things out. I did not tell them about Apex Rides. I did not tell them about the business I had built or the money I was making. I was too afraid. Afraid they would still find a way to diminish it to make me feel small. Sunday dinners at my parents' house became torture. Every single week, it was the same routine. My father would ask when I was going to get a real job. Marcus would talk about his latest promotion, his bonus, his business deals. My mother would look at me with this worried expression and say things like, "Arnold, you are almost 30. You need stability. Look at your brother." One dinner stands out in my memory. I was 27, and Marcus had just announced he was being promoted to senior analyst. My father opened a bottle of champagne, something expensive he had been saving. He raised his glass and made a toast to Marcus, talking about how proud he was, how Marcus represented everything a son should be. Then he turned to me. "So what about you, Arnold?" he asked, that familiar edge in his voice. "Still figuring things out. I am working on something," I said quietly. Marcus laughed. "Working on what, those toy motorcycles?" The whole table went silent. Even my mother looked uncomfortable. I stood up, mumbled something about needing to leave early, and walked out. As I was getting my jacket from the hall closet, I heard my father talking to my mother in the dining room. "I do not know where we went wrong with him," he said. Those words stayed with me for weeks. I started skipping Sunday dinners, only showing up when it was absolutely necessary. The gap between me and my family grew wider, and honestly, I preferred it that way. At least when I was alone, I did not have to feel like a failure. Everything changed because of one client. His name was David Richardson, and he was exactly the kind of customer I had always dreamed of working with. David was wealthy, successful, and absolutely obsessed with motorcycles. He came to me wanting something special, a custom bike that combined vintage aesthetics with modern engineering. He was willing to pay $45,000 for it. I spent 3 months on that bike. Every detail had to be perfect. The frame, the engine, the custom leather seat, the paint job that shifted colors in the sunlight. When I finally finished it, even I was blown away. It was a masterpiece. David loved it. He rode it out of my garage with the biggest smile on his face, and 2 weeks later he called me with an opportunity. There was an exclusive motorcycle show happening in Dallas, a prestigious event where only the best builders showcased their work. David had connections and got me an invite. I drove to Dallas on a Saturday morning, my custom bike loaded in my trailer. The show was incredible. High-end builders from all over the country were there, and the bikes on display were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I set up my booth, and people started gathering around. They asked questions about my process, my inspiration, my techniques. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. That is when I saw him. Robert, one of my father's business associates. He was walking through the show with a group of people, and when he spotted me, his eyes went wide with surprise. "Arnold," he said, walking over. "What are you doing here?" I explained that I was showcasing a bike, trying to keep my voice casual. Robert looked at my work, genuinely impressed. He started asking technical questions, and we talked for nearly 20 minutes. He mentioned he had been following Apex rides online and was blown away by the quality. Here is the thing. Robert had no idea I was Gerald's son. My father never talked about me in business circles, so why would he? About a week after the show, Robert was at the golf club with my father. They were on the back nine talking business, when Robert brought it up casually. "I did not know your son was such a talented builder," Robert said. "His work at that Dallas show was incredible." My father stopped mid-swing. "What are you talking about, Arnold?" Robert said. "The guy behind Apex Rides. Those custom motorcycles are beautiful. Top-tier work." My father must have stood there silent for a long moment, processing what he just heard. According to what I learned later, he did not say much else. He finished the golf game, went home, and immediately called Marcus. Marcus was at his apartment when the call came. I can only imagine the conversation. My father, angry and confused, asking if Marcus knew anything about this motorcycle business. Marcus shocked, feeling excluded, and honestly jealous. Why had I kept this from everyone? What else was I hiding? Marcus did what Marcus does best. He investigated. He found Apex Rides online, scrolled through the website, looked at the portfolio of bikes I had built. He saw the Instagram account with thousands of followers, the articles that had been written about my work. And he saw the prices. He saw that I was making real money, probably more than he made at his corporate job. That must have eaten him alive. Here he was doing everything right, following the path our father laid out, and I was succeeding, doing exactly what they told me I would fail at. Marcus made a decision that night. He was going to expose me at the next family dinner. He wanted to see the drama unfold, wanted to watch me squirm under the spotlight. 2 weeks later, I got the text from my mother. "Sunday dinner at 6. Do not be late." I almost did not go. I had been avoiding these dinners for months, but something told me I should show up. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was fate. When I arrived, the tension was immediate. My father barely looked at me. Marcus had this strange smile on his face, like he knew something I did not. We sat down to eat, and my mother served pot roast, the same meal she always made. For the first 15 minutes, nobody said much. Just the sound of forks scraping plates and awkward small talk about the weather. Then Marcus dropped the bomb. "So Arnold," he said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "How is Apex Rides doing? Must be busy with all those orders." I froze. My fork and knife stopped midair. The room went completely silent. My mother looked confused. Apex. What? Marcus leaned back in his chair, that smile growing wider. "Oh, did Arnold not tell you? He has been running a custom motorcycle business. Quite successful from what I see online." My father's face turned red. "You have been lying to us for years." I put down my utensils slowly, trying to keep my hands from shaking. "I was not lying. I just did not share. You quit your job, told us nothing, and wasted time on motorcycles behind our backs." His voice was rising now, anger spilling over every word. Something inside me snapped. All those years of feeling small, feeling invisible, feeling like nothing I did would ever be good enough. It all came rushing up. "Wasted time," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I built something from nothing. I have clients across 3 states. I make more than Marcus does. Marcus's face went bright red. That hit him exactly where I wanted it to. I kept going. But I knew you would never accept it. You have never believed in me. Never once asked what I actually wanted. You just wanted another version of Marcus. My father stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. We wanted what was best for you. Stability. Security. I stood up too, facing him across the table. No. You wanted me to fit your definition of success. You wanted me to be someone I am not. My mother tried to interrupt, her voice pleading, but I was done. I have spent years feeling like I was not good enough, I said. Listening to you mock my passion. Comparing me to Marcus at every opportunity. Well, I am done. I am done apologizing for being different. I am done seeking approval from people who cannot see past their own narrow view of the world. Marcus tried to say something, but I cut him off. And you, Marcus. You expose this because you are jealous. You are stuck in a job you do not even love, chasing Dad's approval like it is a prize, while I am actually happy. I am doing what I love, and I am successful at it. That eats you alive, does it not? He tried to deny it, but his face told the whole story. I grabbed my jacket from the back of my chair. I am leaving. When you are ready to respect who I am, not who you want me to be, you know where to find me. I walked out of that house and I did not look back. Behind me I could hear my mother crying and my father shouting, but I kept walking. I got on my motorcycle, the one I had ridden over, started the engine, and let that familiar rumble drown out everything else. I rode away from that house, and for the first time in years I felt free. The first week after that dinner was strange. I felt like I should be sad, should be crying, or regretting what I said. But instead I felt lighter. Like I had been carrying a weight for so long that I forgot what it felt like to stand up straight. But the silence hurt. No calls, no texts, nothing from my family. It was like I had ceased to exist for them, and that stung more than I expected. I threw myself into work. I took on new projects, poured all my energy into building bikes that pushed my skills further than ever before. I connected deeper with the motorcycle community, went to more shows, met more builders and riders. These people appreciated me for who I was not for, who they wanted me to be. That meant everything. About a month after the blow-up, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was small, fragile. Your father is proud of you, she said quietly. He just does not know how to say it. I stood in my garage, phone pressed to my ear, and shook my head even though she could not see me. That is not enough, Mom. I need him to actually say it. I need him to look me in the eye and admit he was wrong. She did not respond. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing important, and then she hung up. 2 months after the dinner, something unexpected happened. I was working on an engine rebuild when I heard the sound of a car pulling up outside. I looked up and saw my father's Mercedes parked in front of my garage. My heart started pounding. Gerald got out slowly, looking around the space like he was seeing it for the first time. He walked in, hands in his pockets, clearly uncomfortable. He looked at the bikes I was working on, the tools organized on the walls, the sketches pinned up everywhere. Robert kept talking about your work, he said finally. I looked up your website. The silence stretched between us. I did not say anything. I just waited. I was wrong, he said, and those words seemed to take everything out of him. I should have listened. It was not a perfect reconciliation. There were no hugs, no tears, no big emotional moment, but it was a beginning, a crack in the wall that had stood between us for so long. We talked for about 20 minutes, awkward and stilted, but it was something. Marcus never called. His pride was too wounded. I heard through my mother that he was doing fine, still working at the same firm, still climbing the corporate ladder. But there was a distance now that might never close. Over the next few months, I came to understand something important. Success is not about money or approval from other people. It is about alignment with your authentic self. It is about waking up every day and doing something that matters to you, not to anyone else. You cannot force people to understand your path. Sometimes setting boundaries means losing relationships, and that hurts. But losing yourself to maintain those relationships, that is a worse price to pay. My business kept growing. I hired more people, started mentoring young mechanics who reminded me of myself at that age. I found a community of people who shared my passion, who understood why I did what I did. That community became my real family. I still think about that dinner sometimes, about the look on Marcus's face when I called him out about my father's anger. But I do not regret it, not for a second. That confrontation forced me to choose myself, maybe for the first time in my life. One evening, I took a ride through the Texas hill country. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I stopped on a ridge overlooking miles of open land, the wind calm around me. I sat on my bike and thought about everything that had happened. My motorcycle did pay the bills. But more than that, it paid for my freedom. I do not know if my family will ever fully understand what I do or why it matters so much to me. Marcus might never forgive me for exposing his jealousy by simply existing on my own terms. My father might always see me as the son who did not follow the plan. But I have learned something crucial. You cannot shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You cannot dim your light because it makes someone else feel less bright. The only person you owe your life to is yourself. The rumble beneath me reminds me every day. Some roads you have to ride alone before you find the people who will ride beside you. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between your passion and your family's expectations? What would you have done in my situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about finding your own path. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, your definition of success is the only one that matters. Keep chasing what sets your soul on fire, and never apologize for being exactly who you are meant to be.